Hi, I'm Luke Boudreau, known as Kamikaze26 on the Atari Age forums. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, President, and CEO of IntellivisionCollector.com. And you're watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.
If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
And I did it again. I left the overlay up, Jeff. I do that about every third time. I leave that up. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special stream today, which is a real weird time for me, Saturday afternoon. But man, we got the I think most of the Western Hemisphere covered here today because we've got 6 p.m. for my guest. Point the right direction. Decle right there. It is 10 a.m. for Luke, the Intellivision Collector. Thank you for joining us, Luke, to talk to Decle. And Jeff, of course. Jeff is with us. He's noontime, his time.
Yep.
But yeah, you're the man of the future, Decle. You're the father of the future for all of us. You're 6 p.m., which is really kind of neat. So, guys, this is Decle, but the community in general, really, and probably I would say one of the absolute most knowledgeable people in the community on the PlayCable, as well as some other aspects of the Intellivision community, television peripherals and tools, because he has reverse engineered the PlayCable. He has taught us or shown us much of what we know today about the PlayCable, technically, as well as the way it worked back in the day for the users as well. So also keyboard component stuff. You program, Decle, right?
A little bit.
You've got, of course, one of the games most people might be familiar with is, okay, we're going to pronounce it both ways, right? Zor?
Yeah. So officially, according
Zor.
to Paul and Ian,
Yeah.
the original authors, it should be said Zor.
It should be said Zor. There you go.
Yeah.
We bounce that back and forth, haven't we? But wouldn't you say at the end of the day, those are the guys who have the right to say exactly what it is?
Yep.
What was the system that was on originally again?
BBC Micro, which was a 8-bit microcomputer in the UK.
Gotcha. It's for you guys who are watching, if you remember, Zor was released by Intellivision Revolution at PRGE 2023 is one of their releases. I think we had, look, what was it, 14 games released that one? We were out there. That was the year I went out. The Zor came out. I think there were 14 releases at that PRGE. It was probably the most ever at a PRGE, right? Okay, so let's see. You also had an entry in the Inti Tiny Contest. Is it Inti Basic Tiny Contest in 2024? Yep. And that was Chimpy.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty interesting little game because it took advantage. What was exactly it was emulating as well? It was emulating something very special.
It was emulating the Chip 8, which is a very early system it's kind of a virtual system that's based off the RCA Studio 2. So it's very similar architecturally to that. Gotcha.
Really interesting, though. It was something so totally different. But it was tricky to get running, too, if I remember correctly. What was it special about getting it running?
It is. So in order to meet the rules of the competition, I couldn't include the ROMs inside the Intellivision ROM. So you had to load them off tapes. So
gotcha.
They had fake tapes for the ECS.
It was neat because I got it working. I think you helped me on one day. Did you help me with that too that day? Get it up and running. That was the first time we had talked back in the day, and then we got talking about PlayCable and such. which gets us to this little, I guess it's PlayCable week here on my channel, because of course we're at the 125 back because I started doing the show. I had these ideas about doing something on the PlayCable with just showing the game, the program and such running, because Decle has also made a program or a ROM that can be run in JZIN TV. And let me know if I'm out of line here anywhere, Decle. It can run in JZIN TV, and it emulates to the best of their knowledge what the PlayCable looked like to the user back in the day in the 80s. And it's kind of neat to do that. The games are the games that we all know, but it's the method of presentation and the method of loading that is emulated and how it functioned back then, which we'll get into in much more detail. But that's the gist of it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a menu front end that tries to recreate what the PlayCable would have looked like if you'd had the service back in the 80s, and it packages up to 15 regular 8K type ROMs into one mega ROM, and then allows you to play it inside JZIN TV or on your LTO flash or whatever.
Right on. So before we get into the thick of things, let's look at the chat, see who's here. First one, it's too bad because I know you know this guy, Ian.
Yeah.
He's sorry we'll be able to catch. He's got a tax appointment in half an hour, but he's going to watch again later. So, Michael, you are missed as always, because you always have good questions and such. And it would have been nice for you to be in here and be able to chip in as well. Salvador's here. Morning, Salvador, who's out in the same time zone as Luke. So he's having his breakfast while he's watching at the same time. Junebug is here. That'd be just fine.
Yep.
She's at noontime at her place as well. There's Buckeye. I've talked a few messages back and forth with him the last couple of days. He was out at PRGE last year, right, Luke?
Yeah, he's a great guy. First time
right on. If I plan on getting back to this year, I'm hoping to get a chance to meet Buckeye face to face, because I was there 2 years ago and Buckeye wasn't, and I'll get a chance to meet him anyway. PJ, good to see you, PJ. Let's scroll down. That's a weird time. I'm hoping that lots of people find the stream, or it's not too bad of a time for people with it being, right now. Casey is here, Television Gamer. Good there. Right on, Casey. Anybody else? Roger Matthews is here. Psycho. That'd be Psycho Stormtrooper. We were talking to Psycho Stormtrooper last night as well, so it's good to see you here today. And right on, just taking a look over here what we're looking at. We actually got pretty good number in here right now. So let's move on. First thing I guess I want to ask you about, Decle, is why Intellivision? Give what's your history with the Intellivision? Is this something that you had from your childhood, or is it something that you came to later on?
No. I think like lots of people in the community, I had as a kid.
Okay.
So so the PlayCable came out, not the PlayCable, the Intellivision came out later in the UK. So I think Christmas 81 maybe.
Okay.
And I think we got it in 82. So my family got it. Me, myself, my brother and my sister used to save our pocket money and buy games. We probably ended up with 10 games, I guess, 10 around that between the three of us. And then we had a little community. We used to swap games amongst friends. So actually, we probably had access to about 30 to 40 of the titles.
Right.
The vast majority would have been Mattel titles. We didn't really get many third-party titles in the UK prior to like 85.
Okay. Well, where did the television sit? Like I know, thinking about where I am in that era, of course, it was Atari and Intellivision. Later on was ColecoVision, but it was Atari and Intellivision first. And as the numbers show, it probably was this way all over, but it was probably 10-1 Atari to Intellivision. There weren't that many with Intellivisions. It wasn't like over there, because I've just heard that Intellivision wasn't as big in Britain or Europe, but I know lots of people like yourself who had it, who loved it, who still play it today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was similar, so I would guess it's kind of 10-1 numbers, but I don't know. I've never seen any kind of breakdown from the international markets to know how different it was. But certainly, most people had Ataris and home consoles and so on, rather than.
I'm thinking less about raw numbers, is just like I can remember you know, as in television, there was only like 2 or 3 friends. You had a couple friends with the televisions anyway that you could trade with, but it was like everybody had an Atari, but it was only it seemed like around here when I was a kid, only a few had a television. Matter of fact, I can still remember the 2 or 3 that did.
Yeah. Right.
Because it's probably similar over there. So what were your favorite games? What was the favorite games that you had or that you borrowed or that you still
so we got of the stuff that we owned, I really enjoyed Utopia, Burger Time, obviously, Tron Deadly Discs, Space Battle. Of the stuff that I used to trade, AD&D was excellent. Used to love Snafu for the music, as much as anything else.
It's strange how that could be such a simple game, but it's the music's probably kept it prominent for a long time. So you didn't see, like, they weren't even in the stores, like the Magic games and such, did you?
I can't remember ever having seen the Activision or a Magic games. We did have Donkey Kong. That was one that we bought ourselves.
Right.
But that was the only third-party game, certainly that we owned, and I can't think of any of my friends having third-party games either.
Would that have been the CBS version?
It would have been the CBS version, yeah.
That's kind of neat. How many
with the kind of little notch in the cartridge?
Okay.
Yeah. You
have some of those, right, Luke?
Yeah. Were you disappointed when you bought the DK?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't not in so much, you know, in comparison with the arcade version, because I'd never played the arcade version, but in terms of the fluidity of the controls relative to other Intellivision games, yeah. So it's I can understand how if you had seen the Coleco version or had played it in the arcade, you would think it's a pale comparison.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when we played it back then, because we had the original version when it first came out, when we bought it, it's like, I played it, we liked it. We knew it was limited. My other sister that lived a ways away, they had Coleco. Yeah, it wasn't the ColecoVision version by any stretch, but we played it and we had fun with it. And now you see DK Arcade or D2K Arcade. It's like, wow, you know, it's quite a difference, but it was a fun game. Different perspectives. It's one thing to look at it from 2025. It's a different perspective when you picked up in 1982 or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And you just accepted it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you can also compare it to like the handheld versions, and it's, you know, it's better than those. So
yeah, there you go. Tarzilla out there made the first comment on the wall plant, Luke.
Had to be something, right?
It had to be something. That's another time zone checked off. There's Mountain Time. Tarzilla's out in Edmonton, so we got all kinds of time zones covered here. That's awesome. And DJC, good to see you, Chuck. Right on, glad you're here. So tell us a little bit, like, okay, so you've had it as a kid, and then probably like all of us, it sort of goes away for a little while, right?
Yeah.
What drew you back in to that? Because you're not you're not just into it. You have reverse engineered a lot of these other devices. You've really studied the way some of these things work. So something has drawn you back in. What drew you back into Intellivision? Was it the playing of the games? Was it the interest in the hardware? When did you get back into it? And when did you start looking at these things?
So I had a bit of a nostalgia kick in the mid-90s, and I picked up a second-hand unit and some games at what we would call a boot sale. I don't know quite how the terminology translates.
Garage sale, yard sale, boot sale, I've heard. Yeah.
That's it, yard sale.
Yeah.
And then slowly over the kind, you know, during the late 90s, I collected all of the original 125 just loose cartridges just to see what the games were.
Sure. Yeah.
Now by trade, I'm a software engineer, and therefore I had a bit of interest in the programs themselves.
Right.
And I was reading up on Intellivision Lives about the production variations. Yeah. And I had an interest in trying to acquire and play all of the different ROM variants of the games. I'm not so interested in packaging variants. Gotcha. And so I started to collect those where you could just tell by playing, but obviously there's some games where you can't. So I built a ROM dumper, and I would dump cartridges that I found to try and find the variants.
Right.
And then I documented those on a web page, which existed for a while, but has subsequently gone away. That just detailed all of the known ROM variants of the Intellivision, and that kind of got me into the reverse engineering side of things.
What were you finding for when you say you were finding variants? Like, I know there are different ROM variants, like 2 or 3 different ones, but how many were you finding? Anything up to that point? Did they know that there were ROM variants out there?
No. So as I said, Keith had documented some on Intellivision Libs.
Okay.
In some instances, he had documented ROM variants which I don't think ever got into the wild. So, like the 8K Block and Chase, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
But there were lots of others, like Fast and Slow Armor Battle, Hard and Easy Space Battle, realistic and intuitive steering for auto race,
right,
etc. So there were a fair number of known ones. I have found 1 or 2 ones that weren't known. So, for example, I don't think it was known that Star Wars, there are 2 versions. The European version doesn't have the Star Wars theme tune at the beginning of it,
really,
whereas the US one does, for example.
Okay. Did you know? Have you heard of that, Luke?
No, but I was just about to ask. So you had this all archived on a website that is now no longer around. Do you still have this information?
Yeah. If you go to Wayback Machine and look up decle.co.uk instead of decle.org.uk, you can find it on Wayback Machine.
Cool.
Interesting. And no, to answer your question, I didn't know about the Star Wars Pete.
That's really
that's new to me.
I mean, it's simple. It's cosmetic, almost, you would call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's interesting that it'd be different. And licensing, I don't know.
I guess that's the only reason I can think of that it would be removed.
But was this theme? Okay, I'm thinking about this theme on just for that one game show. Well, why? But it's also the theme that plays when you go invincible in the middle of that game, right? You're talking Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go, it plays it when you go invincible. So if you took it out of the beginning because of licensing,
I don't know whether it does or it doesn't, because I've never gone invincible in Star Wars. I haven't played it that much.
You see what I'm saying, though? Like, why would you take it out of the beginning if you're going to have it in the gameplay anyway? That's something that really kind of needs to be checked. That's kind of neat. I'll see if I can find that and look at it. I don't know if how I never find the different ROM variants because we've never seen it. But there's C-Mart. Good to see you. Yeah, there you go. We learned something. We learned something today, and we haven't even started talking about the PlayCable yet. That's pretty cool. Were there any other ones that you found that were a little bit different, or?
There were, but I can't think what they.
No, fair enough. There was nothing like that. That's cosmetic, but it's kind of significant.
Yeah, I mean, hang on a minute. Okay, so there was. I can't remember whether I found this or Joe Z did, but there's 2 variants of Chip Shot Golf. One has Caddy spelt DDIE, the other has Caddy spelt DDY. There's 2 variants of Golf. One on one of them, if you press one of the side buttons, I think you get the shot, the whole distance printed at the bottom of the screen. So it'll tell you it's like a 500 and whatever yard hole. There's nothing that's kind of game changing that I can recall.
You're saying that about Chip Shot, and it seems to me I had that conversation with Steve one day, Steve Ettinger, who wrote it.
Right.
And he told me that there was a couple of different variants as well, including that one. Right. But he got on and I did a video with the Easter eggs and such, and he told me how to do all the different, to get all the different Easter eggs so you could try to make them happen, which we did some. It seems to me he told me about that too, the variant. But it's there's so many interesting things, little things like that they all sort of just you think about them and then you kind of forget about them because there's so many variants out there. But C-Mart won't forget that one. C-Mart will get the we'll have to check the European one for sure. And he's going to check all of his chip shot cards too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I always hand out work for CMART. He never does it though. I don't know.
Say that again.
I'm always handing out homework for CMART, but he never does it. He owes me pictures of the inside of his PlayCable.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, let's see. So, when did you actually start? What was the first time that you decided that you're going to take? What did you do first, the PlayCable or the keyboard component? You've done massive work on that too, and no, we'll talk about that in another stream sometime, or maybe we will today. But what you do first?
So, how I got into the whole kind of reverse engineering of weird peripherals is really down to a guy called Ron the Cat. So he posted in 2017, I think, late 2017, that he'd acquired a keyboard component and he lived in London and it didn't work. And could someone help him? Now, I live just outside London, probably about an hour away from him. And so I kind of raised my hand and said, yes, I can try and help. You know, I'm not, you know, I've studied electrical engineering at college, but yeah, if you're willing to let me loose on it, then we can see what we can do. And so this introduction to Ron was great because he's a nutter, and he spends inordinate amounts of money on things that I would never purchase, which is great. Yeah. Because I get to play with them. Yeah. And he gets to own them. But what I've subsequently discovered is Ron's a bit strange in the community, because most of the people who spend inordinate amounts of money on owning things like to sit them on a shelf like the one behind you and look at them. They tend not to want to get them working and play with them, like this in my experience. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the thing. But that's not satisfactory for Ron. Ron wants things working.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So which is great for me. Sure. So I get to play with them and get them working for him. So we started work on his keyboard component, and that was a massive task. It took probably 4 years end to end to get it fully working.
What year did you start that?
So that would have been 2017, 2018, early 2018, and we didn't finish it until 2022, 2023. So during that time, I think 2019, he also acquired a PlayCable, and as you know, PlayCables don't do a lot when you just plug them in. They just kind of squeal at you in a really nasty tone. Yeah. So he challenged me to, can we do something with this? Can we get it to actually, be more than something that you plug in and it squeals at you, or something that sits on a shelf? And so that's what kicked that off. So Ron now, I think, I know he's the only person that has a working PlayCable. Okay. And I suspect he's the only person with a fully working keyboard component with all the software. So that to him. So the advantage for me is I get to play all this stuff, and along with to be 100% clear, these tasks are never done just by me, or indeed just by me and Ron. There's a great deal of other people who put in and have put in over time a massive amount of work. So I'm thinking of, when it comes to the keyboard component, it's like Frank Palazzolo, Scott Nuds, William Moller, Carl Muller. They did a lot of early work on it. The version of the emulator, so the keyboard component is partly emulated in MAME. So that work was done by Frank Palazzolo. Oh, and of course Joe Z as well. Mustn't forget Joe Z. Then we came along kind of later, and so the team that worked on the keyboard component was Joe Z, Lathe 26, myself, Ron the Cat, and Frank Palazzolo. So it's not just me; it's like a team of 5 people.
Gotcha.
And a similar thing happened with the PlayCable. So there, Josie and somebody else, whose name now eludes me, had dumped the ROM inside it.
Okay.
And then I worked with Josie to kind of complete the understanding and build the the little microcontroller extension that then got Ron the Cat's PlayCable up and working so that it can play games.
How do you? Oh, and that's the one that you show in the videos that are on your channel.
That's the one I show in the video. Yeah.
So you basically set it up so you could feed it the information, and it will decipher and let you play the games, or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's so cool. So since we're over on, let's get over to the PlayCable a little bit. And I said, I'm not just going to say to you, oh, now explain to us exactly how the PlayCable works. You have the comm for an hour. No, well, but how did you start? Like when you're sitting there going, okay, we're going to see if we can get this to work. What was your first approach? What is the very first thing you did when you had it there to go, okay, I want to figure out how this thing works?
Okay, so I had, what was the first thing I did? The first thing I did was open it up and trace out the circuit inside, specifically the bit that communicated between the master component and the PlayCable, so that I had an so hang on, let me pull up a picture.
Are you on? I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you the screen. Okay.
Cool. Yep.
There you go. So
there we go. I'm in control. No root stuff now. Okay. So if you were to look inside a PlayCable, this is what you would see.
Gotcha.
Can you see my cursor nice and big?
We can see your cursor. It's good. It's very
cool.
Good.
So what you have here is you've got a power supply, which is kind of this bit here.
Yep.
And then you have the kind of digital logical bit, which is just this bit just here. Okay. So at the moment, the chip that sits here has been taken out, and then this is the RAM that in the mythical 8K of RAM that all of the games are stored in.
Oh, okay.
And then the rest of this, okay, so this bit here through here, like that, that is basically an FM radio receiver. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that I did was, so this is the chip that had been taken out. So basically what I was doing was tracing through, working out what all of these pins do.
Okay.
And from that work, I worked out that there was actually only one pin that data came in from the radio side of things. And then, so at that point, I took this out and put it onto a test area, and had loads of wires leaping from this socket to my test bench, and I've set up a microcontroller to start feeding data into that pin to try and get it to do something.
Right.
Now, to help me with that work, Josie, as I said, had already dumped the firmware ROM.
Okay.
So that inside that chip there is a 512 decle ROM, and Josie had dumped that, and that actually gives you lots of clues about what the PlayCable is expecting by way of data. And so together it was possible to work backwards and work out what was needed to be fed in. But that's broadly kind of how it came together. And it took probably a month, 2 months, something like that to get it all sorted out. So it's not an enormous project, but it was a fun project, certainly.
Everybody's sort of working at this distantly too. Like you said, there's a group of 4 or 5 of you. I mean, you're not all together in London doing this.
No. It's the beauty of the internet is you can create these virtual teams and work essentially globally on these kind of problems. Which is very cool.
This one we have here, of course, we said there's the Gerald and there's the General Instrument versions.
So this one here,
which version is this? And I think you've shown me before that there are the differences in them.
Yeah. So this one here is a General Instrument branded PlayCable.
Okay.
This is the second one. This is the second one. Yeah. Okay. We believe. So So this is actually Ron's PlayCable that we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, for anyone that owns one, I would encourage you to open it up and take this picture of the inside, because there do seem to be lots of variants, and I would encourage you to do that and highlight that there are only 4 screws, 4 Phillips head screws, and the top just lifts off. Take the photo, put it back, do the screws up, no damage done. Yeah, so the different versions. So this is the second one. So the first one, if I go over here, is the Gerald branded one, and we believe that these ones were used for the developer teams to work with, and during the field trials. We don't know whether they were ever used in kind of the production system, but
would
the
you
reason
would have been in the 5 test cities possibly?
That's right, possibly.
Okay.
So our suspicion is that these will be much rarer than the General Instrument branded ones, and you can see immediately, if you take the top off these, that they look very different inside.
Oh yes.
So they actually have a 2-layer, 2-board, 2-layer kind of construction. So this board on the top in the later General Instrument ones is replaced. All of that is replaced with that one chip that was removed. Oh wow. Okay, and this is like a standard way of developing electronics. So all of this stuff is standard off-the-shelf chips that you could just go and buy. And then what they do is they build it using this, debug it all, and then when they're happy with the design, they consolidate it all onto one chip for production purposes, which brings the cost down massively. And then that chip gets put into the board underneath. So if we take this board off here, then underneath it you would see an enormous metal standoff that holds it up above the above the lower board, and then the lower board here looks very similar to the other one. So I've rotated it here, but you can see where the chip will go. There's this connector with a cable coming off, and that cable is then what hooks up here to the board above. So you can kind of see that if you were to consolidate all of that into a chip, you would then be able on the bottom to just unplug that and plop a chip in instead. And that's what they did.
I'm trying to think though. It was 78 when they started. It was April of 80 before they actually put the test markets out there. So you're talking, it's probably 79. They're going through the development of this. So the advancements between 79 and like 81, 82, the ability, the technological advancements were so incredible that they managed to take that entire top board and turn it into a chip.
So I have seen program files from Gerald of them kind of starting to develop it, and the earliest files I have from Gerald are from about May 1979. So that's the point at which they have some piece of test hardware that they're starting to write software for to test.
So interesting. So
decle, sorry.
Go for it.
The power supply, I'm looking at this picture you have right now, and I'm extremely, extremely interested in these pictures. I'm a big hardware guy. The power supply, does it look like it's soldered directly onto that rectifier bridge? There's not a connector?
Yes, it is. There's no connector.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the fact that the bridge rectifier here is discrete diodes. It's not a package, which, obviously these days you'd get a 4-pin square package that you just drop in there.
Guys, that's really interesting. Please explain to us the significance of that, because it's like that's surprising. Obviously, local. What's it mean? Because the layman, I don't know exactly the significance of it.
So if you were to open up your Intellivision, then you would see. So you would, well, the first thing is that this power supply bit of the board, so this bit here, is on a separate board away from the electronics. And the
Gotcha.
second thing is that it's connected by a cable that is has a socket, so you can just pull it out.
Okay.
So if you, the power supplies tend to get hot. They tend to be one of the less reliable bits of a piece of hardware in general.
Right. Yeah.
And so it would normally be the case that you'd make them so you can remove them and just replace them if they go wrong. Correct, Luke?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what you're getting at, Luke, right?
Well, I
But-
mean that plus it's a whole lot of extra labor to go and solder
Yep.
wires directly on these components without having just a connector, which is
Gotcha.
typically what you would find nowadays.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. Wow.
Should we talk about the kind of whole piece, the whole system?
Absolutely.
If we could,
So-
just one before we
Sorry.
continue
Yep.
on. So that ribbon cable on the bottom that replaces the IC chip, is that a dip style connector or is that
Yes.
just a single line?
No. It's a dip. It's a dip connector.
It's a dip.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the same shape and pins as
Yes.
an IC chip.
Yep.
So theoretically, you could
You could
take the
just
newer
take
chip
that
and
off
plug it in.
and plug it in, and it would just work. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. That and yeah. So with saying that's where it connects in to the.
Yeah.
Just a real quick question that Salvatore brings up: would a television play cable and televoice be over 3 feet long? Well,
I don't know, but
Like it-
it doesn't work.
there
I
you
can
go.
tell you that.
We'll get to that
so-
after, but you don't need it in a televoice with a play cable because it doesn't matter. It could
So-
run it anyway, right?
Well, no, you can run Space Spartans. So Space Spartans is an 8K game,
Okay.
so it theoretically should run. I have tested this,
Okay.
and it doesn't because what happens is you get the Mattel Electronics Presents, and then you
Yeah.
get silence. So you don't ever get any of the the recorded voices,
Okay.
that are game specific. And the reason for that is that it doesn't. The play cable grounds some of the pins on this connector that need to not be grounded in order for the IntelliVoicey type stuff to work.
Well, that's
So yeah, unfortunately it doesn't work. So we can be, reasonably confident that IntelliVoice games were never broadcast, even though Space Spartans technically could have been
by size.
by size.
The size limitation, which I
Yeah.
think you were sort of going to go into a little bit. We said talk about the overall picture, right?
Yeah. So if we look at kind of who's involved in PlayCable, so you've got General Instrument, who own both the semiconductor arm, and Gerald, who are the cable hardware suppliers, basically to cable companies. So the semiconductor side sold chipsets to Mattel for the Intellivision, and together Mattel and Gerald owned PlayCable, the company. Now, it's important to understand that PlayCable, the company, really did two things. So they sold the service to cable companies, and they promoted the service to consumers. So when you see like the Mickey Mantle video adverts and so on, those were commissioned by the PlayCable company, not by anyone else.
Right.
But Gerald then created the hardware, and so they did the development work on the adapter and also the head end, and they would then sell that to the cable companies. So PlayCable, the company, would kind of sell it, and then the Gerald would actually supply the hardware, I believe. So that's kind of how legally that everything was kind of set up. In terms of how things worked on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. So obviously Mattel supplied games, but they didn't supply the game ROMs to PlayCable. They supplied them to Gerald. And Gerald did the packaging of the games to go to cable companies. PlayCable chose the schedule of games to be run. And in fact, it was a guy called Jim Weisenberg who did that work.
Okay.
He was their head marketing guy. So they would then send the schedules to Gerald, because obviously over time Gerald were kind of accumulating a set of ROMs that was bigger than the 15 or 20 that would be broadcast each month.
Right.
And so those game ROMs were then packaged onto, we believe, tapes, so digital tapes.
Yep.
And those were then shipped to the cable companies who broadcast the game to consumers.
And it would be physical media that would have to go to each individual cable company that offered it, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, the important thing to note here is that everybody got the same schedule and everybody got the same branding. So PlayCable as a service isn't something that was tailored or made bespoke in any way by any particular cable company. So in that regard, it differs from TV POW, for example, where TV POW, how the service was sold to the consumer, as it were, how people saw it in TV shows varied from one TV station to another. That wasn't true for PlayCable. So the way that PlayCable works is that sorry, I'm going to speak now as someone who from the UK. We never really had a cable industry in the UK at all. It's very small. But back in the 80s, cable technology was actually not that dissimilar to regular broadcast technology. So it used the same frequencies and the same tech fundamentally as regular over-the-air broadcast.
Yes, it did. It just used called mid-band in between channel 6 and channel 7, and the and that was that's why it went to 83. It's for
and the only difference really is it's broadcast down a cable rather than through the air.
Yes.
Now what this meant was that some stations would also broadcast radio. So there was cable radio in the same way as cable TV, which seems to now not, be acknowledged quite as much. But cable radio was essentially just FM radio. So it was broadcast on the same 88 to 108 megahertz frequency as your regular radio.
Right.
And to use it, you just got a splitter and then plugged the output of the splitter into the FM aerial socket, I think, of your regular radio and tuned away, and your jobs are good and you've got radio.
We did that I was lucky because my brother-in-law ran the cable company, and we used to do things with the head end and such like that. And one of the things they had was cable radio. And it was just at that time, of course, everything coming through the air, which there was a station very close that was crystal clear, but it made everything crystal clear.
Yeah.
It was just because it was run through cable as opposed to going through the air, but it was the same signal.
Yeah.
If you were next to a broadcaster, it would come in perfectly clear because it didn't have the interference. But in the cable, there wasn't interference. So yes, you could run the FM. So I know what you're saying. Yeah, exactly.
So PlayCable really is FM radio. So technically, it literally is FM radio. So if you had cable radio back in 81, and your local cable supplier was sending out PlayCable, you could have tuned to 107.7 megahertz and listened to PlayCable, and it would have sounded like a modem from the 90s.
Yeah.
That kind of horrible high-pitched squeal.
Yeah.
And if you had high enough quality audio equipment, you could have recorded it and played it back, and the PlayCable probably would have been none the wiser. So it really is like an FM radio station. In fact, it's like 8 FM radio stations, because actually PlayCable used 8 different frequencies. So the 107.7 was the
primary
catalog. And then the other 7, the cable company could choose where they were, so it could fit in around the other FM music stations that
local
they were
channels.
Exactly.
It would be different for different areas.
Yeah. And so that's kind of in your head. If you think of it as being like you've got these 8 stations where you've got a DJ on each station, and they are playing the same 2 or 3 tracks around and around in a loop. And you want to listen to a particular track. So you listen to the to the catalog track, and there you get told, oh, okay, you want to hear Elvis singing whatever, you need to tune to 103.2, and then if you wait, at most 3 tracks, you will hear the Elvis track that you want to hear.
Right.
And that's how it works. It just goes around and around in this loop. In reality, the loops are like 30 seconds. So it actually, at most, so it doesn't take very long to kind of come back round. And that's how the games get sent. So if we look, if we go back and look at the, yeah. So this here, this is an FM radio receiver, and it is literally from a car radio. It's the same device that was used in as an FM receiver in car radios. And similarly, which chip is it? This one is also a radio demodulator from a car radio.
It's so simple. It's so simple. Yeah. So tell me this then. Tell me if I'm wrong. This is my understanding of it. The 107.7 was static. That was always going. That was always the catalog. Yeah. And when you turned on you obviously had a cable running into your PlayCable all the time. Like just probably was it coax, I assume?
Yeah. Yeah.
Coax cable running in from your television cable that had the FM signal. When you turned on your Intellivision, the PlayCable got power. It automatically pulled in from 107.7 and pulled up the catalog. Then from the catalog with your screen, you had 15 games because there was 8 channels, and each channel could carry at that time at the start two games or 2 programs. So you would pick one of the programs that would go to that particular channel, and then we'll wait for that one, the one that you picked, to start again. And that's why you got your beep, beep, beep.
Yeah,
beep,
ding, 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 ding.
It up, and as soon as it picked it up, it would go bing. That was reading the information. That's right. 8K and up to 8K. So every 2K it will give you the long bing, 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 and then once you had it all downloaded into the system right here into the adapter,
into the RAM,
you'd play the game.
Yeah,
and later on they got enough technology that they put 3 on a channel, right? That's how they boosted it up to 20 games.
Yeah, so the change from 15 to 20 games happened in October 1982.
Okay,
we know that because it's announced in one of the newsletters, the PlayCable newsletter. In fact, it's the only PlayCable newsletter I believe we have a copy of at the minute, and it happens to be for September, October, so it got announced. There was no technical change to make that possible. So they have always they would always have been able to do 20 games, I believe. At the end, in late 83, they were starting to toy with doing 24 games.
Okay.
But what happened was, they needed enough titles to get to 20 games. So if you look at the rate at which games were released in late 81, not many games were actually released, and they didn't start picking up until 82. So they kind of had to wait for the catalogue of Mattel games to get large enough that they actually could expand.
Not to mention the fact Mattel wasn't very keen on giving them the new games.
Yeah. I mean, so there undoubtedly was a massive amount of tension between PlayCable and Mattel, because Mattel rightly, were concerned about PlayCable cannibalizing their sales effectively. But I'm not sure that Mattel really held games back that much. So where we do have schedules, so for example, so classic example is, where's the schedule? It's in games, isn't it? Yeah, so this is something CMART will recognize. So where we have new games, so if we're talking, so obviously, so new means this is the first time that game has been broadcast on PlayCable.
Understood. Yeah. Okay.
Now, presumably, Poker and Blackjack was broadcast for the first time in February '83 because it's the point at which it was no longer a pack-in game. So I would
There you go.
imagine that prior to that, they didn't bother broadcasting it at all.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the release dates of Royal Dealer, Shark, and Sharp Shot, they're not holding them back for very long.
Okay.
So they may, I can understand the tension, and I can understand that Mattel really did want to hold things back, but I'm not sure actually they did a great deal of that. And the other one is we have so Michael Hayes, shame he's not here, has some recollections of playing motocross, I think, in August of 1983. I think that's right. And again, that's only just after it has been released.
That would be pretty new. Yeah. The indications that I have had is that there was so much hesitation with the newer games, like basically because they do that we need to sell these. We need to sell these games, and if we put them out there, we're not going to sell any of these people. So
no.
Anyway, it is common sense, but the whole time I'm thinking, like, you're in this arrangement, like, get out of the arrangement. But apparently it was sort of a bit of a catch-22. I'm sure there are legal ramifications there too with what they signed, but still, it was a self-destructive thing to a degree, but potential was there. It didn't work out, but.
And this is the really oddball schedule. Again, thanks to CMART. So you'll see it down the bottom here. It says that it's effective from July 1981.
Oh yes.
And if you go and look up the release date of Boxing, it's actually not until after July 1981, as far as we know, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I think this is. So July 1981 would have meant that it was in the period of the test marketing.
Okay.
In the 5 test cities, and you can see here that this PlayCable logo is the old style logo.
Yes.
So I guess at that point, Mattel might have been willing to let them have games right on the bleeding edge, but I don't know.
Yeah. Very, very interesting.
So I have a question about manuals, the game manuals.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen on eBay and I've seen at CMART's house, there's a box set of PlayCable manuals. How would the consumers get those? Do they get all the manuals as soon as they subscribed?
I believe that. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure on how the manuals work. So you'll notice I haven't put manuals on this diagram, for example. I suspect that Mattel had them printed, and then I don't know whether they went via PlayCable to the cable company or via Gerald to the cable company. The manuals are they're interesting. So as you say, there are boxes. That's the kind of prototypical one. I've seen this box as well, which I think Casey owns, which is very strange because I believe program kit is what they kind of called it, but this is clearly not branded as PlayCable, which is weird. So I believe that when you subscribed, you would get like a full set of manuals, and then incrementally over time each month you would get an update with any manuals that were needed for the new games that were coming up. Now I don't know if that was done every month or like every quarter. So as we saw here, this schedule is for a quarter. So I don't know at that point whether you would get the 4 new sets of manuals and overlays that you needed. I would imagine they probably only did it every quarter.
Yeah, a lot of the games would need the overlays to run. So
absolutely.
Subscribers.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing there is that there are 2 different kind of types of PlayCable overlays. So we believe that there were 45 games that could have been broadcast. So they were compatible, and they were not restricted by licenses. So Disney restricted the broadcasting of the Tron games.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So of those 45, we know that 39 were broadcast from documents like this. So you can see what's coming up and what's new and so on. So that then leaves us with 6 games which we're not so sure about. So there are 3 games which probably were broadcast. So those are Locomotion, Mission X, and Motocross. Mission X and Motocross, we have people who can kind of recall having played them, but I'm always a bit nervous about recalling things because it's a long time ago and everybody's memory fades over time. There's another one that is possible, which is Tarmin, but that was released in like November, so very, very late.
The same month that they decided to shut it down.
Exactly. So maybe, and then there's 2 that I think are unlikely, but that could have been, and those are Kool-Aid Man, because it was a marketing gimmick. I can't really see that was likely to ever be broadcast, and Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo, like Space Spartans, is the only theoretically compatible ECS game.
Gotcha.
And it does work. It completely works. I've checked it.
Okay.
So, but again, I suspect they wouldn't do that because of the potential confusion and all the rest of it.
There'd be a lot of reasons not to transmit Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah. So you've got kind of 39 games that we know were broadcast.
Yeah.
37 of those we know had manuals that had a PC part number on them, so they were specifically made manuals.
Right.
And then another, I think 13 of them actually have on the front page, they have a bit that describes loading the game from PlayCable rather than just the usual, press reset type stuff. So there's kind of these different tiers of the manuals. So from games like Burger Time, which, as far as we can tell, didn't have a special manual at all.
Right.
You then get it'll be one of the later ones. So something like maybe Sharp Shot there would have had a PC part number, and then the earlier games would have had this kind of custom page to actually describe how you use PlayCable within the manual, as well as having your own kind of instructions.
Very interesting. I mean, I wish I have memories of it. I don't have memories of playing it, because you said Michael Hayes remembers playing it. I wish he was here to answer the question, but I've had a few people message or since I put the video out last night saying that they remembered it or a friend had it. One person had a friend had it and they had played it. But there's really just not that much experience out there with people who remember playing it.
No, there's a good reason for that. There aren't many of them. So they reckon that there were at any one time there were at most about 5,000 subscribers. So it was really, really small.
That is so small. And that's what you look at the costs that it had for these cable companies. And this is basically going for each individual cable company. Each individual one had to buy this outfit, $12,000, and basically about 50 grand at that of today's money, I would say. Does that sound like a pretty good estimate? And
probably,
plus the adapters, because I kept saying they didn't charge people for the adapters.
They didn't charge people. I don't believe they do. They certainly did charge the
cable company.
They did charge the cable companies, and I've got a price list somewhere.
Wow. What? Please show that. What a major investment for a cable company.
So they were charging them $75, I think, for the adapters.
Wow.
Back in the day, sorry, Peter, back in the day when we used to get cable boxes from the cable companies, didn't they rent us the cable boxes and then you had to return them after your subscription ended? I wonder if that's what they did as well.
Yes, they did.
Like a deposit.
A deposit or a monthly fee, $5 each month to have the box, and then
Certainly,
you
the
didn't reach
modern day
further?
style is to charge a fee every month, but it seems to be back in the day because I can remember the cable boxes, the General Instrument cable boxes with the red numbers in the front, and there just used to be that they'd be everywhere, like, and they'd be in and out of houses and stuff. I don't think they charge people for them necessarily.
Can't remember.
But anyway, nonetheless, the cost was huge. It's just part
that's
of
not
the additional cost. So it's like at $12 a month, you have 5,000 subscribers.
but
There's no money to be made.
that's not the end of it either. So if you share my current screen.
Oh, well, I don't know what happened there. I thought I didn't take that out. There we
No,
go.
no, I did because I stopped
Oh.
sharing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, by all means.
Yeah. So this is the document that this schedule comes from. It's actually a kind of trade show document.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think CMOT has this one. And it gives off the rate card. So as well as charging the company for the hardware, they also took a cut of the subscription as well. Is that legible?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So when you see Mickey saying $12, somewhere between $4.50 and $5.50 of those $12 was going to PlayCable each month.
Right. So you're making $7 a month.
Yeah.
So a lot of subscribers to make back your money in a year.
You think that Apple is a bit extortionate with their 30% on the App Store? Well,
yeah.
PlayCable was after a bit more than that.
Wow.
Wow, that's something else. It's like, as I'm looking through everything, I'm sitting there going, there weren't enough Intellivisions in the communities to warrant a cable company investing, to me.
No.
So no wonder there were only 20. Right?
Yeah. No, it was expensive. It was expensive.
Yeah. But I wish I had. Maybe we did. We wanted it. Obviously, my brother had a television. He wanted to get it. He just was the local for the bigger company, and it's like he said, no, they'll never get that because they, that's a lot of money, and they'll never ever in a million years get their money back.
No.
And so I don't know. That's very interesting. What's that one again? That's just a.
So it's a trade show promotional. Hang on, let me just
from the PlayCable company to go aimed at cable companies.
Yeah. So you can see here, this is what you were discussing in the
right
in the video, where this $3 billion is what was being pumped into arcades.
In the arcades, that was their selling point.
From
the arcades.
What this does show here is, and I've got a blow up of that picture. It shows all of the kind of paper memorabilia these days that you can get.
Right.
And so there's actually quite a bit of stuff that let's see if I can find it, that you can acquire. Is it that one? No, not that one. I can't find it now. I did blow this up. See, I've got, no, there it is. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to switch what I'm showing again.
Sure, yep. I'll put it back up when the time comes.
Sure. That one.
There it is.
Yeah, so you can see scoreboard is the newsletter.
Gotcha.
And then you've got I think Casey might have this $50 rebate card.
Okay.
And I don't know what these are down at the bottom here. I mean, there might be another kind of newsletter from earlier or later, but I've never seen one of those.
So do we know, we only have one episode of the scoreboard, but do we know how many there actually were?
Well, we know there were at least three. But yes, we only have the orange one, which I have. Oh, it's a PDF again. That's annoying. Hang on.
I can pull it down. I can pull it down. You can switch.
No,
it
no,
around.
no. I'll present my my entire screen rather than
Oh,
the window,
okay,
and
fine.
then we
Yeah.
can stop faffing about, can't we? That's that one. Okay, so we'll do
C-Mart does
that.
not have that rate card paperwork.
No, that kind of stuff is owned by Paul Hilt, who was the sales director
Of PlayCable.
Yeah.
Not of the
So
PlayCable.
this is okay. So if you pop it back up,
There it is.
yeah. So this is the orange scorecard, scoreboard. Sorry.
Yeah.
And as you can see, so this is from the fall of 1982, and this is we're going to go to 20 games.
Right.
So this is how we know the switch over, and they're advertising the new games that are going to come for the upcoming period. So again, if we look, so that gives us more information, and we can check back against the release dates to work out whether or not they've actually been holding back games. Yeah. So Jim Weisenberg is the guy who was choosing the schedules.
Gotcha.
And here he's so at the bottom of this, I think they have a feedback form maybe somewhere, but they sought feedback from customers, and so he's now reporting back on the games that people voted for to come up in following months.
So interesting.
And there's the totes.
What's it say about them underneath it? You can see it there.
Yeah. So basically the totes were yeah. So it was a recommendation. So if you recommended a friend and they then took up a subscription, then you would get it.
So cool.
So you had to tell had to give details of your friend who had signed up. There we go. That's probably a bit better, isn't it?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So you had to provide details of your friend who had signed up in order to.
Well, we'll send that in. We'll C-Mark can send one in. He can put me down. I'll sign up for it, and he can get a bag.
Yeah.
Solve that problem.
I suspect that the totes are probably going to be the rarest piece of merchandising, but I could be wrong. But yeah,
very interesting.
So there is quite a lot of kind of marketing material. So this is an original shirt.
Yeah.
That someone picked up at auction. The colors here are not super representative, so I believe that the text is actually white, not yellow, as it appears here.
Yeah.
And the shirt might be a bit lighter than it appears in this photo. And then there's the patch, which I believe we saw C-Mart has one of.
Yeah, so I could bring that up. Just where am I going? Where am I going? Right here. There it is. Yes, C-Mart, I stole a picture.
So yeah, there is really quite a lot of bits and pieces to collect for real hardcore collectors, but there are several trade show documents from different times.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really like is this advert for Corning new channels. That's it. So this is a California. So this is mid 1983.
Wow.
So it was an A4, I think, folded in half. So this would have been the front cover.
So you said this was in Corning, like that was a specific cable company that put this out?
Yeah. So yes, it was. And so the thing I love about this is you can see again. This is clearly Mission X. So this is it's indicative that they were certainly intending to broadcast Mission X.
Yeah.
And I think there's another game. There's Burger Time as well, which again is a mid '83 title.
Right.
And then
that was also the same place. It was Corning. Is it Corning, New York?
It's Corning, New York. Yeah.
Yeah, the same place where at the end they did try.
That's right. Yeah. Here we go.
Putting master components out with the rentals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
To bring
So
out
there you go.
the-
Free use of an Intellivision unit.
There it is.
There it is. And this is also 24 games.
Oh,
So this is the only reference that we have to them doing 24 games. The 24 games, 24 hours is a nice catchphrase. I could see that. I can see how marketing people would love that.
Well, this is what also sort of surprised me is I knew it was 8 channels. I knew it was 15 games because they could put 2 in each of the 8 for 16, but one of them is reserved for the catalog. That left you with 15 games. So if you tripled it all up, why would it be 23 games?
So, okay. So
as opposed to 20, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, okay. So that takes, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So that takes us to the head end. Because what you're talking about there is what are the constraints on the head end machine?
Yes.
So, this is not going to hang on.
You've worked on it. I'm going to slide it down. As soon as you get it fixed, I'll put it back up.
Thank you. Technical difficulties.
This is the best. This is the comment of the night so far. Okay.
Really? Good luck getting your hands on it.
So, okay, I'm ready.
Okay. I'll take that down, but we won't forget it.
So this is the head end machine. It was called R2D2 because it's basically so this machine here is 19 inches across, so it's about 22 23 inches across, I guess, and you can then size it from there. So this is actually 3 different kind of machines. So the computer itself is in the middle here.
Okay.
And then underneath this is the tape drive. So it has 2 tape mechanisms in it, and then over here there's somewhere where you can just store your tapes when you're not using them. Okay. And then the bit up the top, then this general data commander is the thing that would take like just a serial set of program data and encode it ready for broadcast down the cable. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this computer is that it's not really one computer; it's actually 5.
Okay.
So this is the system overall. So you have your computer, your tape drive, and the Gerald data commander, and then inside the computer you have CPU for the computer itself. It only has 32K of RAM. That's your lot. That's all you get, and a card to talk to the tape drive. And then you have 4 of these transmission cards, and each of them generates 2 FM radio stations effectively. Or sorry, it generates the data for 2 FM radio stations, and then the data commander actually converts it into a radio station. And each one of these cards is its own computer. So it looks like this.
Right.
So you can see here it's Gerald data transmitter. So it has its own CPU. So that's a CPU there. It has its own ROM to run programs. It has its own 32K of RAM. And it has 2 serial data generators and a parallel data generator. So the data parallel generator, we believe, is used to communicate, to kind of communicate with the master computer through this set of pins.
Right. And
then each of these serial generators is generating data for one of the 8 channels. Okay.
Yes.
And so actually the constraint in terms of what you can send is this 32K of RAM.
Okay.
So you can send as many programs as you want on a given channel, providing that the sum total of the data on the 2 channels that share a card doesn't exceed 32K. Okay. Because the 2 channels have to share this RAM. So So what would
Well-
happen is that when you shove in your tape, the kind of master computer loads programs onto these cards into this RAM, and then this card is itself, it just sits there churning out the data and generating the loops.
Let me try to explain it back to you a little bit. You have
Yeah.
this is one of 4 cards.
This is one of 4 cards.
So you bring the tapes in. They send you the tapes from Gerald. Send the tapes to the cable companies. The cable companies put in the tapes, and the games that can add in total on that particular channel, 2 channels or 2 channels, but 1 card can be a maximum of 32. So you could put like a 4 and 2 12s. I know there's other limitations, but you could conceivably put 2 12s and an 8 on one and have it on. No, that would be on 1 card.
No. So, you're thinking, okay, so this is 32K bytes, and we're talking 32K. So you have to consider that the Intellivision uses decles, so it's slightly less than that. But yes,
i.e.,
if we were talking bytes, then you could put 2 12s and an 8 on 1 card, and you could split them. So you would then maybe put 1 12 on 1 channel, and the 8 and the 12 on the other channel.
Well, you would probably be more likely to put like 2 4s, an 8, and a 12.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. So probably what they actually did was, so the downside of having lots and lots of programs on 1 channel is that it takes a long time for the loop to get back around again.
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so whichever card was used for the catalog, the channel that had the catalog probably only had the catalog, and that's only 2K. And so, because you want to get people into the catalog as quickly as possible when they reset the machine.
Yeah.
And that then would mean that you're left with somewhere between 28 and 30K for the other channel on that card. And so that other channel probably had 3 games in it in a longer loop. So, and those games would probably have been less popular games, because there you can suffer the long time for the loop to get back round. So part of the work that Jim Weisenberg or the people at Gerald would have been doing is kind of juggling which games go on which channels in order to make popular games be nice and fast and responsive to load, and less popular games, you can wait a little while for your.
So the tapes would show up every month or whatever, and they'd have to reload onto these boards for the month, and then the tapes come out, get in storage, and then it's loaded on here. It's done until the next month's games come in.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know whether the tapes would just sit permanently in the machine. So if something went wrong, and they had to restart, the tapes just there, and it would restart. And
fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah.
But they got a new tapes. The tapes it wasn't reading off the tapes when it was sending the signal.
No. All the data is on the card in RAM, ready to rock.
And then through that whole process, generates the FM signal, sends it out to the adapters. The adapters pick it up, and we're talking, you could put 2 12s and an 8 on one. Well, no, you couldn't, because of the other limitation, which we really haven't talked about.
The 8K in the adapter.
Yeah, because that was a big hurdle once games are starting to get 8K and above, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, you could always cut games up. So if you think about He-Man, for example, 16K game.
Yeah.
But because the 2 sections are so distinct, it would have been possible to play the first part and then have a short pause and load the second part, and then
you would have had the break though to load.
Yeah. But that would have been possible. So
in essence, I think, guys, what we're saying is that the limitation on the adapter itself was 8K of RAM memory. So when the game was downloaded from this whole system through the FM signal picked up by your PlayCable adapter attached to your master component, the most it could take was 8K at a time.
At a time, that's right. But I mean, when you look at it, a lot is made of this 8K limitation, and it would have been a problem in 1984 and 1985, but it wasn't really so much of an issue in 1980, you know, before everything went and hit the fan.
Yeah.
So if you like look at
It was just another aggravating factor that was sort of starting to come into play before everything else sort of came into play and made it so it was a moot point because it never got to that.
Yeah, that's right. I did have, where's the picture of the here we go.
So
Yeah, so if we look at how games are released over time,
yeah,
so this is what I was saying about oh no, it's from 81-12. So there was this long period where Mattel didn't release any games.
okay.
And they'd only just got, so when was it? So it was 82. Yeah, so they moved to 20 games here. Yeah, so if you look at how games are released over time, the blue area is Mattel games that were fine and dandy and all the rest of it and could work.
Yep.
You can see that games start to become incompatible, primarily initially with the release of the Intellivoice games in
Right.
kind of September time, 1982, and
Yes.
it gets worse. But it really only gets to be significant, you know, like September 83 and onward.
Is 2 months before they pulled the plug anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the yellow area is the Tron games that were restricted. So,
Sure.
So couldn't.
But they saw that coming too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to come into the, you know, if we're going to keep going, this is another thing. We're going to have to do upgrades and new adapters for everybody, and that's got to come into the decision making of
absolutely
the process, right, or halting the service.
I mean, the much bigger issue is the fact that Mattel treated it as a walled garden and wouldn't allow anyone else's games on the system.
Okay. Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is the same data as before, but we're also adding in compatible and incompatible third-party titles.
Yeah.
And you can see the third party, you know, is much more significant, the lack of third parties.
There weren't many incompatible third-party games. They just didn't want them on the system.
No, indeed. Third-party games were incompatible primarily because they were avoiding using the exec. So we're talking about early Imagic games where they start at 4800 hex as their start address rather than 5000.
I didn't realize that there was any issues with the Imagic games.
Well, I mean, it only comes up here. They probably won't work in the kiosk.
Yes,
point of sale stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, when it comes down to what killed PlayCable, the first thing is 83 and the crash. I mean, no one made it out of the crash. You know, GameLine didn't. Atari was in pieces essentially.
Ultimately, that's what got everything. Everything else was leading in that direction, but when the crash happened, that just made everything else okay. The rest doesn't matter anymore. Yes, that would have caused problems, but we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's done.
The next biggest thing is probably that Mattel was not Atari. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no reason that something akin to PlayCable couldn't have been put together for the VCS.
Right.
It would have worked, would have been fine. I mean, obviously there was GameLine, which used a modem, and it wasn't a subscription. It was kind of semi-subscription, but you also had to pay per use.
It seemed crazy expensive to me.
Yeah. But there's no reason why PlayCable couldn't have been made for the VCS. At which point, I don't really think there's a reason why it wouldn't have just naturally been 4 times larger, 5 times larger, just because the market was for Atari was 4 or 5 times larger.
Yeah.
So that's the next biggest thing, I think. The third biggest thing, I think, is the fact that Mattel treated it as a walled garden. And only then do you get into 8K on the on the adapters. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is when you look at the competition, so GameLine's adapter is 8K. The StarPath Supercharger, 6K. So it's not like they were some kind of weird outlier that they'd really been scrimping on the RAM. It's just where things were. The other thing to bear in mind is the reason that the RAM is small is because RAM was damn expensive.
Sure.
So the ColecoVision has, I think, 16K of RAM in it, and it came out in 82. And the reason it came out in 82 is because that was the point at which RAM was cheap enough to make it viable. The ColecoVision was actually designed in like 78, 79, I think.
But
it was like years before, but it couldn't, it wasn't economically viable until RAM prices started to fall.
Oh, very, very interesting. Just Roger, really quickly, I'm not sure if I really understand exactly in regards to games like Mission X and Burger Time being later releases planned for the PlayCable. Is that why the manuals for those games lack the PC serial number on the back of the manuals? I'm not sure.
I suspect so. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question I had was with
are we boring Jeff? Is that what someone's saying there?
you just sliding off to the side of the screen. The question I had is are there any of these head ends available around still in existence?
I do have an eBay search. I haven't seen one come up.
Ever? Has there ever been,
I have never seen one. I mean, I've only had an eBay search for it for the last 5 years or so. But
well, there you go.
It was the same question I had, Pete. I was curious about that.
Well, I just know that I didn't see one in the underground layer. So,
well, you've got to figure there's like maybe 30 of them exist.
Yeah, that's it.
Existed. So maybe not even that many. So
now we know what Christian could do with Luke's right nut.
Yeah. That one might require both, Pete.
So shall I try and tempt CMART and other people into opening up their PlayCables and looking inside?
I would think so.
You would think so. Okay.
You mean right now, or going forward?
Yeah. No. Well, maybe right now. I don't know.
I don't know if CMART knows how to use a screwdriver.
That's Tarzilla's in here earlier, and he was saying about that he has to drive down to CMART to do this tech stuff for him. So, but the next time Tarzilla's down in Vancouver, he probably would do it. What are you looking for?
So the reason to open them up is because you never know what you're going to find inside. So
okay.
So Voltron, I think, had bought a PlayCable and the manual box from a game store in New Jersey.
Okay.
And when it was opened up,
right.
Well, along with it came this piece of paper
inside it.
With the manuals.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. And this piece of paper. Now, these pieces of paper are very interesting.
Yes.
And because obviously there's lots of games that you recognize, but then there's things you don't recognize, like Picadoodle.
Right.
And Vegas 2.
Yeah.
And Memory Test and Clone Man. And like, what are these numbers? Anyway, we worked it out. So it turns out that the engineers at Gerald are a smart bunch. And they worked out that they could take one of the Gerald PlayCables and they could record the data off a broadcast card that they had in the office onto audio tapes. And if they tweaked the PlayCable adapter a little bit, they could then play the games back off audio tape and use the PlayCable without having any kind of subscription at all.
Right.
Okay. And so Voltron happened to pick up a machine, which when we opened it up, looks like a regular Gerald branded PlayCable, but it's been butchered. So there's a chip piggybacking here. This is Joe Z has gone and covered up the ROM here to protect it. because it has a window in the top of it, because it's not the standard ROM, and you can see that there's
Rewritable.
these wires kind of knocking around. And when you look at the bottom of it, there's a whole ton of stuff that has been ripped out. So that big metal box RF receiver has been removed. There's a load of chips been removed here. There's a bit of a botchy resistor going on. This chip has been removed. So basically the radio receiver has been removed, and instead they just route audio straight into the kind of demodulatory bit, and then so that they can just play tapes. And this is called play tape. And so what we're seeing here is actually the list of games that were on the audio cassettes. And these numbers are audio cassette counter numbers, so they could find the games to play them. Yeah.
Oh my word.
So this is stuff that this is the Gerald engineers.
Yeah.
And their personal stuff, and hence Pickadoodle is a program that they wrote. Vegas 2 is a program they wrote. Clone Man is the program that that Joe Jacobs and Dennis Clark wrote and submitted to Mattel, that got them the contract to write Bump and Jump.
It would be kind of neat if you could show us that.
Well, would you like to see it? Let's see. So I'm just going to start. Okay. Hang on. Let me just get rid of that. So can you see that?
Yes.
So this is Clone Man. As you can see, it's a demonstration program. Now you won't be able to hear any audio because it's going to come through my headset, and I can't kind of route it to you, but rest assured there is audio.
And this is on the this is the Intellivision software.
Yeah, this was written by Joe Jacobs and Dennis Clark in 1982. And I think you can see why Mattel took them seriously.
Yes.
You know, they're not mucking around.
And from this, they got the contract to write Bump and Jump.
Yeah. So I think Keith did them a bit of a disservice. You know, he kind of portrayed them as, you know, plucky hackers. They are absolutely not plucky hackers. They are, you know, software engineering professionals who worked for Gerald, who, you know, had access to PlayCable and its, you know, knowledge, and put this together.
Wow.
Over a period of months.
So, question is this: if this was in ROM format or bin config, whatever, right now, it could be played.
Yeah.
It's probably out there. I don't know.
No, it's not out there. Okay. No, I don't have permission to share it.
No, fair enough. But like the list off of that from that those papers, the different games, Clone Man and Pickadoodle and stuff, are those lost? Is it lost software?
Yeah, unfortunate. Okay, so unfortunately, the tape did not come. The audio tape or tapes did not come with the PlayCable. You know, we did ask Voltron to look very carefully. Yeah. He was like, "Yeah, no." But subsequently, I got into contact with Joe and Dennis, and I wrote up the story of how, you know, they got the contract, you know, the work that they did at Gerald, how they got to be in the position that they were.
Right.
And after that, they asked me if I could help them, because they had like 35 floppy disks of data from their PDP-11. And so they asked me if I could help them kind of recover that and get it back so that they had it on a slightly more future-proof medium.
Yeah, then yeah,
So,
exactly.
So we did that, and so we have about 1,400 programs off those 30 discs that have just all kinds of weird and wonderful things. So from that, we have now got a copy of the tools that APH created to program the Intellivision and create programs. So I can use those to compile Mattel source code into games. So I've done that with some of the other stuff that's on there. We do have Vegas 2, which was on that list.
Yes.
So that is a pre-release version of roulette and slots, and it has slots in it.
Okay.
Which I've written up, but that's the only known version of slots that
which was advertised pre-release as being a cartridge coming, because it's in that it's on one of the end labels as the pans across. I think I actually used that clip in the video last night. Slots. It's interesting.
So some of that stuff has been recovered and exists. Some of it doesn't. So the Clone Man, we only have the final game for. We don't have the source code for it.
Okay.
But which is a shame, but it is what it is. It's better than having nothing.
Absolutely. So Vegas 2, Clone Man, but like pick a doodle, who knows what it was? Like you don't even really have any. I just try to think of whatever the grail.
Pick-a-doodle was an animation tool.
Okay.
So we do have that, and we got that working. So it allowed you to create screens that are based on cards. You could design the tiles.
Yes.
Then lay them out, and then you could create like a flick card of to create an animation of up to 20 screens.
Wow.
So
interesting. Wow, we're over time, but if you have more to tell us, by all means.
No, I mean if we're
we're good. Like there's no real time that we always shoot for something, and I think I told you that back when we started. Sometimes we get going, and it ends up going a lot longer because if it's so interesting, we just go and go and go. Do you have any other questions? What is going through your mind, Luke? I know that. Are you hearing anything here you have questions on?
I do, and I have to say I am kind of nursing a sore throat. If I speak a lot, I'll start uncontrollably coughing, so that's why I haven't been talking a whole lot. But I am absolutely amazed by this conversation. I knew a lot about the PlayCable, not to this extent. I've learned so much through this, Decle. Thank you very much for talking about this. I was very interested in those pictures for the hardware and everything else, and how it was inside, and the modulating circuit. It's really, really cool. I'm really glad that you came on this chat today.
I mean, if you're interested in more of that, all of the circuitry has been reverse engineered. It's all documented on Atari Age. All the circuits are there, all the schematics. It is possible because the Gerald version of the PlayCable is based on standard hardware that you could buy. You can build today a PlayCable from stuff you can buy off eBay. That is possible. It can be done. It's on my list of things to do.
And then
you can build it, but you can't use it.
Well, but you can use it because I've built a thing that allows you to use it.
So tell us about that. Then really, really briefly, you say you built something that lets you use it. It's just a matter of getting the FM signal in the correct format into the cable, into the system, right? Or even do it differently. It
doesn't. It doesn't do the FM bit, which annoys Ron the cat, because, as I said, he likes things to work, and he likes them to work properly. So this is what we're talking about. So I've just put it.
There it is.
So so here you can see the bottom of the red socket that this kind of brain chip normally sits in. And so this is a little board that I constructed called the PlayCable Phoenix. And we have a little microcontroller here. And what it does is it listens to, so it can store probably 25 games, something like that, in its internal flash memory.
Okay.
It listens to instructions to tune to different channels, and then it has its own little loop of data inside for each of the channels, and it will, when it gets an instruction to retune, it will then start sending the appropriate data into the PlayCable. And at that point, the PlayCable, well, as you've seen in the videos online, it just works.
Huh. Yeah, exactly.
So
is this device, this is how you show that, like, because you show one example of how locomotion would definitely work.
Yeah, this is how that works now. And the nice thing is it's entirely reversible. So nothing is desoldered, nothing is mucked around with. All that you do is you just lift this chip out of its socket, plug this board into the socket, and then plug this chip into the board, and away it goes.
That sounds like a project, Luke.
It does.
That's excellent.
But yeah, it's not. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah. Chris asked, where'd it go? We're here. Any games coming out?
Touche. You need to ask John, ask Rev if he can release a few more Zors.
There you go. Wow.
So speaking of games and releases, Decle, was it last year or the year before you had released a PlayCable game for your brother or something along those lines?
Oh,
tell us about that.
Okay, so that is essentially the same as the menu packaging thing that I provided to Pete. Okay. So, but on a cartridge. So so the way that works is that it has a kind of so it makes use of the kind of banked memory mechanism that the ECS uses, and so it has in it uses all 16, well, up to all 16 banks for the kind of standard 8K range of games, and then the first one has the menu program in it, and then the other 15 can have 15 8K games. And the when you reset the console, it kind of fakes a PlayCable starting up, then shows you the menu. Excuse me. You then get to choose whichever game you want, and then it will fake booting the game using a PlayCable like, or what we believe the PlayCable would have looked like, and it switches to the appropriate bank for the game that you're after, and then the game just plays. So from a user perspective, I think it's a reasonable representation of what PlayCable would have looked like, but in reality, it's a regular cartridge just with 15 games all stacked in the same place in memory and a menu on the front.
And I will be like following up for this in the next day or two. I'm going to do an episode where I'm just going to show you that ROM just to see what the PlayCable would have looked like. I used a lot of it in the video that I released yesterday, the 125 video on the PlayCable, just as background and such. But I'm going to show one just because it's games that we all know that we played. So I'm not going to play a lot of the games, but just to see the way it functions is interesting. And it's like we only can see that nowadays because of the work that Decle has done, right? So cool. That's what you're talking about, right, Luke? That's exactly what you were talking about. Because
it'd be kind of interesting to put that board inside a replica of a PlayCable shell and slide that into the side of the machine. That'd be kind of interesting.
I mean, I don't know how expensive it would be to create a shell that big, but yeah.
Let's just say I have contacts. Plastic mold injection, not 3D print, but
there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean
Right
the
on.
obviously the menu is kind of what we believe the menu was like. So there is only, actually, ironically enough, it's this image here, is the only image that we have of the PlayCable menu system, and that's just the kind of splash screen at the beginning that you get. So we know what PlayCable would have been like to load a game. So if you plug the PlayCable in, then you get to see the kind of catalog screen and the ding 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 ding. That we're, we know what that looks like because it's baked into the PlayCable adapter itself.
Yeah.
But because the menu program was sent, was broadcast, we don't know 100% what that looked like. Could you show my screen again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So none of the tapes are still in existence, correct? Are any of the tapes
Not that
still?
we know of, no.
Yeah. Would the menu have been sent on every month's tapes?
Yes, I
Probably.
believe
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Yeah.
So it might be the case that the menu changed over time as well.
True.
In fact, we know that it did change in some ways because early on, there are recordings of menus that have 4 different tunes. So you would get a random tune each time you press reset.
Yes.
So you would get either Ride of the Valkyries, so the same version that's in Checkers or in
Sub Hunt.
Sub Hunt, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you would get the Entertainer, which is the one that I have baked into the menu that I've created.
Oh yeah.
Or there's 12th Street Rag,
Mm-hmm.
or oh, doodah.
The music
God.
box. Music box.
Yeah,
Music
that's
box answer.
that's the one.
Yeah.
So you would get a random one of those. So we know that those
Huh.
exist, and actually we now have the software to create. So amongst the stuff that we recovered was that music.
Yeah.
So we have all of those now, and I've put up videos with those in.
Yeah, they're all the videos of all that music is on Deckel's channel, and you will hear some of it in the 125 on the PlayCable as well. It's the background music you hear towards the end. Yeah.
So we know that this screen is pretty representative because we have that one black and white still. The only thing you can't really tell is whether or not that registered trademark and TM is actually as it was, but the rest of it is pretty accurate.
Right.
When it comes to so we know that this is correct. When it comes to these screens where you're kind of choosing games, there we don't know whether these are completely correct. So we know from people that it definitely listed 4 games on the screen. We know that you chose them by number. We don't know anything else. Quite how this choice mechanism works is a bit up in the air. There is an Easter egg inside PlayCable, which is that it is possible to get PlayCable to, once a game is loaded, to pause and show you this screen to say, the game that you've asked for is ready, and then you had to tap the disc to actually get to the menu, to the title screen of the game.
Mm-hmm.
This does not ever seem to have been used, so you don't get to see this typically. We don't believe. We don't know why it was dropped, but it seems to have been. We do know, we have a suspicion that from the play tape stuff that there might have been a splash screen that looked like this. So there is another image which seems to show this older style logo. We think so. It might have looked like this. Now, this interestingly suggests that I need to put some more stars into my menu program because there's way more stars here than mine. So, and the menu selection, this was definitely changed because we can see that it said push disk, I think, press disk. So,
Okay.
but it does suggest that our menu selection mechanism might be wrong. But you can see it does have all the 4 games, and they are chosen by number. So I try to keep it, try to get it as accurate as I can, but without knowing exactly what it looked like, we can't know.
Well, when in doubt, for those who haven't seen it, I could run it right now.
Sure.
I should.
Yeah, you might even get sound, which is better than with me.
Yeah. What am I going to do here? Just thinking to myself out loud so I can get the right things going. And I'll show you guys what this looks like to start off. And like I said, I will be doing a video on this in the next day or two with a little bit more, but we'll show it during the stream too. Where you get sound? I haven't got sound.
So I think the answer to Steve Jones's question to Luke about whether or not it would, what he is suggesting is a large multicart in a large PlayCable size channel is yes. I think that's what.
But a JLP board would use the same, right? Because you can have 15 banks on a JLP board. So you don't need the you wouldn't need the LTO flash, just JLP board.
Yeah, and I mean, it being in a large size shell, it really doesn't need to be anything other than a regular board with a big shell, correct?
Yeah.
And that was just an out loud thought.
Yeah,
but it's very possible.
And all of a sudden, it's a product. That's a dangerous thing with out loud thoughts, isn't it?
All right, I am having some difficulties here, but we'll get it. Every once in a while, my sound doesn't want to work.
Shall I just answer some questions while we're?
Sure, by all means.
So DS95. I must do a lot of low-level programming and assembly. I do a little bit of low-level programming in assembly, not a whole lot, and I mainly do CP1610 assembly language, which is the CPU inside the Intellivision. I can do a very little bit of 6502, but that's all. Yeah, CMART, yes, I am aware that you're awaiting your adapted brother package.
All right, I'll leave. Actually, what I will do is this. And I'm sharing the sound. It should work fine. Where am I? I am right here. So this is what it looks like, guys, when you start it up. Let me know if you get sound.
Yep.
Turn the sound down quite a bit. Is that a little bit better?
Yep.
Okay. And this is where you're saying it could be one of. This is always going to play the Entertainer, this version that you made. But in the day, it was one of 4 different songs: the Ragtime song, Music Box Dancer, the Entertainer, and Ride of the Valkyries. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So the reason is that when I created this, we didn't have the source code for the other pieces of music, and it is. Okay, as a non-musician, it's impossible for me to transcribe music, but even for for decent musicians, it's quite a lengthy task.
And then when you go in, this is our, and we'll show you how, like, just to pick a game, one, and then explain to us what's going on here as I hit the enter button.
Okay, so on a real PlayCable. Oh, okay. So it's now searching for the game, and it's found it, and so it's loading 1K decals each time one of those blocks at the top there is filled in, and then Astra Smash starts. So on a real PlayCable, what was happening there is that when you pressed enter, the kind of brain chip would talk to the FM radio and tell it to tune to a different channel. and then it would sit looking for the start of the game in the stream, in the loop as it comes round. Then when it finds it, it then starts to load it into RAM. And at this point, essentially what it does is it reboots the console to kind of start the game and give control to the game. In this ROM and in the play cart that I created for my brother, what's happening is that when you press enter, it's faking all of the the dings and the blocks filling in.
It's making the searching and the loading.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that actually the number of dings is always consistent. So it's related to the size of the cartridge. But anyway, sorry, the number of searching dings before you get to the loading dings. And then once that process has kind of completed with these blocks filling in, then it flips the bank in the multi-cart and then says again resets the console and says go.
Are there any other than 4K games on here? Utopia.
No? Utopia is a 4K game. I'm not sure. So this list of games is the one that was on CMART's document from July 1981. So I'm not sure there would have been any 6K games at that point. Can we step through again? I'll just quickly.
Absolutely. Yep. With that music to stop there. There we go.
So those are all 4K. Those are all 4K. Those are all 4K. And those 4K as well. Yeah. So
back in the day, though, if you had a 6K game, you would get 6 dings.
You would get 6 dings, yeah. And if you loaded Mission X, you'd get all 8 of those blocks being filled in at the top and 8 dings.
Pretty neat.
And obviously a longer wait potentially on average, certainly a longer wait while the loop comes back round to the beginning of the game again.
If I hit number 3 and enter right now on a real system, it will be waiting. It might be just starting whatever else is on the channel, the FM channel with Utopia. It may be the start of the other game, so you may be waiting 20, 30 seconds for it to go.
The nightmare is it's just started Utopia. So you have to wait for all of Utopia, then all of the other game to get back to the start of Utopia again.
Right.
So if there are 2 games on the channel, you will be waiting an average of, so it takes about 10 seconds, so it's 9 seconds actually, to load one 4K game.
Right.
So if there's 1 game on the channel, you will be waiting an average of 4.5 seconds. For 2 games, you would be waiting an average of 9 seconds before it starts. And as the games get bigger, that average wait goes up. Obviously, you might strike it lucky and happen to choose just as it comes round on the loop, but
at the end of the day, it was never very long.
It isn't, but probably as someone who's fiddled with it now, probably the biggest annoyance is the fact that the PlayCable adapter doesn't have its own reset button. So it would have been really
go ahead. Yeah.
It would have been really nice if when you press the console reset, you just got back to the game that's currently playing. And if you pressed a separate reset button on the PlayCable, it would then reload the menu and let you choose another game. Separating out I want to play the game that's loaded again versus I want to choose another game would have been a big step up in terms of the convenience of using it.
Yeah. Wasn't there something that I read though where it would hold the catalog in memory somehow?
So that
is, me, I think.
Yeah, that's something called Play Comp. And that was Joe and Dennis. So having done the play tape thing, they then went on and went the next mile, which was that they worked out that they could use the PlayCable to as a development system and a test system to write their own games. And that's how Clone Man came about, and that's how, which was then submitted to Mattel. So Clone Man was written with their development system. And I've got pictures of that if you wanted to see it. It's not dissimilar to the play tape.
And I said, you told me about that? Yes, you did. In the video of yours that I watched that's available on your channel. That's exactly where I saw it too. So that's, if anybody wants to go look, Decle, D-E-C-L-E. There'll be a link. I'll put a link down below right to Decle's channel. There's actually a link right to Decle's channel. I believe I put it in the 125 from last night too. So yeah, like those things are really interesting. And that's exactly where I saw it, because you talk about the PlayComp and the different variations that you've made, and and it's so interesting. And all of your keyboard component stuff is there, like everything. This is how I have Fifi that says whatever she does on the opening of you watch the video that I play before everything with ooh la la, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
It's all from the work that Decle did to bring this stuff back, reverse engineering. And like, okay, and I know I'm jumping off topic here, but keyboard component wise, we had no particular idea exactly what those look like exactly until you did that. Is that not true? I mean, we were like,
okay, so first of all, until we did that, there were a lot of people.
So your group did that.
Yeah. There were videos of the demonstration tape that are on YouTube.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think they did have a little bit of the animated the animation of Mimi talking.
Okay. Yeah.
And undoubtedly, when it comes to keyboard component, that animation is amazing, but it's probably the only amazing thing in all of PlayCable. Not PlayCable, sorry, all of keyboard component.
Yeah.
Keith is not wrong. The games are not fun. The man knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Hi Chris.
Speaking of Lathe 26.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Chris.
I've been taking all the glory, Chris. All your glory.
We're giving you no credit whatsoever.
Yeah, so the rest of the stuff, whilst it is kind of interesting historically, is not fun to muck around.
But it is interesting historically, and it's interesting to look at. I mean, and it was sort of like it all could be lost. There's so much that's been lost. It's amazing to be able to now say that these things aren't lost. We can look at them, and it's thanks to the work that you guys did. So,
and I mean, there is an open invitation to people. If they have stuff, then we would love to help you capture it, give it back to you, so you get to keep it. Obviously, we've worked with a number of people that the community aren't aware of because they haven't then wanted it publicized, and they don't want it released, and that's fine. But it would be great if it's something like the kiosk stuff that Chris has done amazing work with that. Then it's great to capture it, to understand it, and so that it's not lost. And obviously, if possible, we can get it working. Then maybe, as we've seen with the PlayCable, with the PlayCable Phoenix, and we've also done something similar with the keyboard component, so that you can use it, and you can, in a way that won't damage your equipment, but you can use it going forward and enjoy it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We all like the keyboard component. To me, like personally, all it is something we looked at in a magazine from 1979 on. We're going, my brother-in-law, who was just into it, he's 15 years older than me, and he said, when that comes out, I'm getting it. That was it. There was it was whatever it was, however many thousands of dollars at the time, he was getting it, and it just never happened. Right? It just never happened. It's too bad. So it's like I've always had memories of the keyboard component of what could have been, but of course, just PlayCable, same thing. I mean, when that came out, but it didn't take. He had the knowledge to go, okay, they're not going to invest like $15,000 into this little town to put this in our system, so we're never going to get it. Like, you do that right off the get go, and unfortunately, that was the big detriment for it, right?
Yeah.
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 Is that what you're doing, Luke?
I have too many things going through my head right now
There you go.
of what I'm going to do. But honestly speaking, yeah, that's a true statement.
Put it on the list, man. Put it on the list. But it's amazing. It's amazing stuff, right? Guys, if you have any other questions, we're going to wrap up here pretty quick. So last call for questions from the chat. A lot of guys out there with a lot of knowledge. If you're wondering anything, this is your opportunity to ask Decle. It's awesome. And Jeff or Luke, do you have any other quick questions you want to ask? I'd love to see one of these head ends appear out of nowhere. I'll be fun somewhere.
Yeah, it would appear and then it would disappear into someone's dungeon. That's the problem.
Yeah, we go to the layer. Yeah.
I don't have any questions, Pete. I've been really enthralled in this conversation and amazed by the info that was shared.
Excellent.
I know there's no video of this, but do we know how did it perform? Like when you brought up a game, was there any kind of lag, or was it just like playing on a television?
It's identical to playing on a television. So the games are identical; they play identical. So yeah, you wouldn't know the difference. It took about 2 seconds to load up the menu, and then, as I say, once you've chosen your game, it's about 10 seconds, I think, on average to start playing, and then you wouldn't realize that there's a difference.
And that's a hard concept because, of course, we deal with lag now because there's a constant back and forth of data that's happening when you're online gaming now, and that just wasn't the case. I mean, you were 100% bringing the game to your system and putting it there.
Yeah,
just like a cartridge. So it's no different than playing a cartridge. All the lag was in the 10 seconds and the 2 seconds that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
How different is that from like systems that came afterwards? Like, I don't know if you know anything, like I don't, but Sega Channel and like, which was 13, 14 years later. What was I know the technology had to be significantly different, but there was no back and forth with it either. I think it was the same thing. Download a game, play it.
I don't know a whole lot about them. I think the Sega Channel used a modem, so it's closer to Gameline, I think.
Okay.
I think the thing that's nearest to PlayCable is the Satellaview. Yeah. The satellite TV thing is it for the SNES? It's for the SNES, isn't it? It's not the NES. Sorry, Super NES.
For Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom, I should say.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think that's the kind of closest architecturally, and obviously there is a big drive to capture and recreate that content as well. I'm aware every now and again you see people saying, we've gotten hold of a new Satellaview piece of content.
C-Mart wants to know what's next on Luke's list.
No, I think that might be heading towards Decle. Decle, you got another game coming out?
Not at the moment. No. I have some stuff that's kind of part way done. I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of tied up writing Unisonic games. I have 2 Unisonic games that are part done. I've got an Intellivision game that's part done, but they won't be good games, by the way. That's the rule. The Decle rule is they're not good games, and the exception to that rule is Zor, but that's not really my game because it's a port, and as we know, ports are not as good as original games.
It's hard to find many original games now. It's a lot of ports, but it is what it is. I mean, it's still a challenge to have some. When you get a good original game for the Intellivision now, it stands out, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
From Steve. I know, Steve, we talked about that before. Zora is a great game. It is. It's a deep game that really demands a lot of time, right? So to play, I've had a lot of fun with it, but I haven't gotten very far, I'm afraid.
Neither have I.
Tell that story, because I know you've told me before. You've not beaten the game, correct?
Oh, no. Well, okay.
Like the whole thing.
I have not beaten it using, what's between my ears. If you choose to, you can go and find solutions online, but that does spoil the game. So from a testing perspective, everything has been tested, and it is possible to finish the game.
There you go.
So rest assured, if you're the one of the very few people who have a copy who are banging their head against a particular puzzle, it is solvable. But I have not solved them all. No, I am not that clever.
It's so challenging. It's a great game. It's a great game. Roger, thank you, Deca, for coming on. All the information and pictures. It was great. I really do appreciate it so much, as does everybody in the chat and everybody here. Looking forward to future updates. Harvey, original for the win, 100%. Man. I love ports too, don't get me wrong, but it's like there's certain games I love that when they port the game systems, the computer games that I've never had an opportunity to play, like Zor. That is an ideal port for me because it's a game that I never would ever experience any other way. Other games are available. Whatever. But original games are a little bit far and few between when they come out. Like I said, they really stand out. So you're welcome, Roger. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, C-Mart. And I guess last of all, thank you, Jeff, for being here, watching the chat as always, and doing all you do to help me out. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you, Luke, for coming in with your expertise, and so you can bridge and ask the questions that I'd never think to friggin' ask.
Not much expertise here, but yes, I'm glad I was part of this. I'm glad that I learned everything that I learned today. Thank you, Decle.
No, thank you all, guys. It's been great fun, and a great opportunity to excuse my I've got a cold as well as Luke, so I'm having to take the throat lozenges. But
I'll let everybody relax a bit. Decle, thank you so much for coming on. We talked about this a year ago, and it's sort of like I like to plan and take time. I don't jump on things too. I guess I take too much time sometimes. That's why it was 14 months between 125s. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all your knowledge, because it's so interesting, and you do such a great job of explaining everything and the pictures and stuff. It was awesome. So as you see from Steve there, Decle, come back and talk about your keyboard component stuff. So hey, we'll have to plan on doing that someday. How's that sound? Does it work for you?
It does, but sometime. Yeah.
Sometime. Give it time, but absolutely, we'll make a plan to do that. But anyway, guys, thank you all in the chat for joining us. Keep playing Intellivision. New downloadable ROMs from Intellivisioncollector.com. Right? How's that go? That's going well, Luke.
I'm going very well. Yes.
You got a busy season coming up, correct? Without saying anything particular, you have a busy period coming up, correct?
You know a lot of the background, Pete, but I've been working on about 4 or 5 different projects for about 4 months now. Some are almost done. I can almost announce them. Yeah. But a lot of money has been invested in the last couple of months, and looking forward to a very productive 2025 and very busy 2025. Your pocketbooks will hate me.
And you'll hear it here first, guys. When that stuff's ready to come out, when Luke's ready, we'll get it out to you as quick as we can. And yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. You're gonna love Intellivisioncollector.com for all your Intellivision collecting needs. Tarzell at last, and thanks, Luke, for the wall plan update. We'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Take care. We'll sign off now, and we'll see you next week in the next videos. I'll be back Tuesday night, and who knows what videos are coming. Watch for that. Old guys and old games on the PlayCable emulation, and we'll show you that. So I'm gonna find my spot. Where do I got? We have it. See you guys. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Luke Boudreau, known as Kamikaze 26 on the Atari Age forums. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, President, and CEO of IntellivisionCollector.com. And you're watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.
grown up by the